Alright, so we're here at the dyno shop this morning. A little windy. How the stock panel filter intake does versus the modified setup that I made a couple of weeks ago. Hopefully, obviously hoping for some good results on the project they did. So we'll see how it turns out. Alright guys, what is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that stuff. Yes, it's Christmas time. So, I've honestly just been sitting on this video for a little bit. Just been very busy. I'm actually off this week, so I wanted to take some time to actually break down what happened for the dyno session for the cone filter open element that I modified onto the car. Okay, so this is completely using OEM stuff to make the conversion. Obviously I had some things that I did on the side that I had to buy, purchase clamps, filters, stuff like that, the cone filter. So there's you know, as you've heard on the internet, there's really no cold air intake out there, or open element air to intake anyway, that's worth putting on the car for the gains or whatever, saying that there's really nothing to be gained there. So I'm not challenging what's been said out there. I'm just simply proving with the dyno chart comparison there that I did, that my car did experience some gains with the modification that I made. And I did not go to a bigger housing, MAF housing, I didn't do none of that. In fact, it's still factory spec stuff, you know, as far as that goes. No changes to the tune, anything along those lines. It's just there. It's still on the Lund tune. I'm running actually a flex tune, and because right now we don't have the E85, it's a winter blend mix at the pump, which varies from 60 to 70. So just kind of running that for now until obviously springtime or whatever, because E85 at the pump is still cheaper than the other fuel. So still running the 85 in the winter just because it's still cheaper, and the flex tune allows me to do that with no problem. Anyway, the car has gained more power and made more power than it ever has with the setup that I made, the conversion setup that I modified for the car. The results are on the graph there. For those of you that know how to read a graph, are very familiar with them, you can see right away where the differences were and how significant it was. So it's very satisfying to see nonetheless that something that I came up with, an idea, something that went from idea to concept to actual reality, is working out for the car. A couple weeks before the dyno session, I went to schedule the dyno, talk to the tuner, let him know that I had made something, some changes, and that I wanted to do another baseline style run just to see where the car stands. I mentioned to him what I did. I made an intake, you know, and basically he said that if I didn't change the MAF housing, then it probably didn't change. If it didn't need a new tune, it probably didn't do anything for the car. So you know, with his experience and everything, it was a little discouraging to hear that, but at the same time I was hopeful, because I did feel, you know, the butt dyno, but I had been driving the combination so long with the stock airbox and everything else with the 85 tune that I did notice something different, and that it pulled harder in the top end. But once again, tuner kind of said that could just be placebo, and I didn't disagree. I just felt like maybe you know, hopeful that that wasn't the case, because it did feel a bit stronger on the big end. I didn't pay no mind for the time being. I was just a little bummed out that, you know, experienced a guy who's seen it in and out had, you know, said that, but nevertheless I had to get the car on the dyno because I had already started going. I went through with it, I built the unit, modified it, and so dyno date comes up, we go in there, we do the run on the closed box stock intake, and with the new filter, just to make it fair that, you know, that it's getting maximum airflow, and it did 448, and from one end of the spectrum to the other, the 462 and a half, whatever, 462 we'll call it, that's basically 15 wheel horsepower just from the conversion with the cone filter. That's 15 wheel horsepower just basically with the cone filter and the conversion that I, you know, modified for the car. So without changing the tune and nothing else, that's it. Even I wasn't on the best fuel that day. It was, you know, E70, E75, which is still good. but wasn't able to run the R tune just because I wanted to play it safe, so wasn't getting the full timing shoved in the bottom of the power curve. Wasn't probably getting the optimized timing shoved into it and everything else, but nevertheless it made great power even on the flex tune, and I'm very happy with it, to be honest with you. 462 horsepower is the most it's ever made. It can vary from day to day, so it's better to take the results from the same day, same dyno, same session, same everything. Air temperatures were within a few degrees of each other, so there wasn't any big differences. So it was important to make sure and do it on the same day, within the same time frame, before there was any huge temperature fluctuation. So take that how you will. With all the stuff being said out there, that there's nothing to be gained from a open air intake, and yes, I know that I've heard that when you're rolling and all that there are gains, but this was sitting still on a dyno, so it wasn't rolling. Yes, it did have air coming through the grill via a cooler, but it wasn't high speeds like it would be above 50 miles an hour and higher. So it was still achievable. The gains were solid in my opinion. 15 wheel horsepower is nothing to sneeze at. It only gained a couple of pound-feet of torque, but in closing this out, the most important part, if you look at that graph, if you're not familiar with how to read it, is not only did the car make more power and torque, but look at how it carried it. It carried it higher, longer and higher into the RPM range, which is usable and explains why I felt like it pulled harder and shifted a little bit more violently in the higher, in the big end, being the higher RPM band. So take it how you will, guys. Right now I'm convinced that it's a solid piece. At least it's something I feel good about. I put some quality parts on it to make sure it's gonna last a long time, and hopefully in the future I will try and maybe put a larger filter on the end for more surface area, see if that's going to make any difference. If not, I'm also fine with where it's at, because there's only so much you can gain in my opinion, because the throttle body is only so big. So unless you're forcing air through there, it can only do so much. I think it's at a solid point where it's at. I'm very happy. I mean, these are the things that you just got to use some common sense when you're thinking about certain things. There's really nothing better than having your idea go from idea, concept to reality, and then on top of that working out. So I'm very, very satisfied, and I think it's just awesome that I'm able to bring this to you guys, just to show you you may want to just run your typical JLTs or whatever the box store brand stuff, but it's really nice to know that I have a one-off piece that is actually competitive with us out on the market. And I proved on the dyno that with the hood closed, it's still making more power. Most importantly, one of the runs, the second run there, the second highest number you see on the dyno graph, that was done with the hood closed, because I know you guys wanted to see the hood closed and the results with the hood closed. And it was the last run, so it was the most heat soaked. It was probably the worst possible conditions that could be had for closing the hood on that thing. So understandably, there was probably a few horsepower loss just because of the heat that's under the hood at that point. But you get rolling on a highway or something else, that heat would not be there. It would be exchanged pretty quick from under the hood and kept at a reasonable level where it's going to perform pretty consistent. But that's all I got, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. You guys got any questions, drop them down in the comments below. Hit the like button, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Merry Christmas, guys. That's me. Hopefully I drop another video before then, but if not, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. You guys be safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.